Good evening and welcome to this council meeting, and welcome to all of the councillors present in the chambers and those who will shortly join us online, and a welcome to those joining us in the public gallery and for those who are watching online. Before we begin, I'll call on Councillor Beregi to give the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of all present and those watching on webcast, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of these lands in which we meet and to pay our respects to the ancestors and spirits past and present.
Thank you. As I inferred, there are two councillors, Councillor Keane and Councillor Spenceley, who have sought to attend tonight's council meeting remotely. Is there a procedural motion moved by Councillor Beregi, seconded by Councillor Carr, that we admit both councillors remotely? All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Welcome to Councillors Keane and Spenceley. Are there any disclosures of interest for items on the agenda? Councillor Welch.
Yes, 10.3. I have a non-pecuniary significant interest because I'm on the board of the Crow's Nest Community Centre, and their financial assistance grant is listed in part 4 of 4.3.
Are there any others? Councillor Carr?
Yeah, and I have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest as I am on the board of the Kirribilli Community Centre, and I chair that centre, and there are financials in the report. Thank you.
Just a point of order. I'll be leaving. I'll leave.
Okay. Are there any other declarations of interest? No. This meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on Council's website. Those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. By attending the meeting, you are giving consent to your image and voice being webcast. Councillors, council staff and members of the public must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during meetings of the council, and councillors who need to use their phone to talk, text or engage in social media activity must leave the chamber to do so. That brings us to confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on Monday the 14th of April. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Santa, seconded by Councillor Holding. Is there any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? And those against? That's carried unanimously. That brings us then to the mayoral minute, which relates to keeping Royal North Shore Hospital land in public hands. On the 5th of April, the state government announced an expression of interest process for seeking parties interested in buying or entering into a long-term lease for land at Lot 4B, Herbert Street, St Leonards, which is part of the Royal North Shore Hospital Precinct. As we all know, the Royal North Shore Hospital Precinct falls entirely within the Willoughby local government area, but is on the boundary of the North Sydney local government area and has been part of the Crow's Nest Accelerated Transport Oriented Development Precinct, known as the TOD. When the state government announced the EOI process, they said that it was a campaign to deliver 448 new homes, including 67 affordable homes, targeting key workers at the nearby Royal North Shore Precinct. The Crow's Nest TOD precinct, as we all know, was the amendments relating to that were gazetted on the 27th of November 2024, late last year. And according to the Department of Planning, they will provide those changes will provide a capacity for 5,100 new homes and up to 2,500 new jobs within the Crow's Nest Accelerated TOD precinct boundaries. Most of that is to be delivered within the North Sydney local government area boundary. The TOD, as I have said before, provided a massive upzoning and a consequential uplift in value to sites across the precinct, whilst only providing affordable housing contributions of between 3% and up to 18% on 2 sites for new residential development in the precinct. Of course, that density is over and above the already planned density for our local government area and for the Crows Nest precinct in particular, under the 2036 plan. So following gazettal of those Crows Nest Todd precinct amendments, the Lot 4B Herbert Street site was rezoned from SP2 Infrastructure Hospital to MU1 Mixed Use to permit up to 62-storey building on the site, which is the highest building height in the accelerated Todd precinct, with a floor space ratio of 4.3 to 1, and an affordable housing contribution of only 15% on the site. And I say only 15% on this site because the private sector on the overstation development at the Crows Nest Metro is already submitting a state significant development application that will deliver 30% affordable housing for health workers on that site. And yet on this public site, it's merely 15%. This isn't the first time that a state government has sought to sell off this important public asset at Royal North Shore. In late 2014, the then Health Minister Gillian Skinner announced plans to sell off part of the Royal North Shore Hospital campus to a private developer. And there was a very long campaign, a very big community campaign against that proposal. Many will remember the federal election in 2015 when Dr. Stephen Ruff, an orthopaedic surgeon at Royal North Shore, ran as an independent candidate on this very issue. Then again, in 2021, the former state government intended to develop a 45-storey building, mixed-use development on the site with 500 units, commercial and retail units with short-term accommodation and a new school. And the cherry that was being dangled there of the new school was to meet the needs under the Crows Nest St Leonard's 2036 plan, which is that what we all know, which is that a school is vital to meet that planned for population. At the time, the Herald reported that doctors were concerned about the development given the significant loss of prime public land being essentially used for private development. And one of the doctors then said, we support the concept of more schools and key worker accommodation, although we do not think that this should be done to the detriment of our future healthcare needs. So it's incredibly disappointing and I would say exceptionally short-sighted that the state government is pursuing the sale of this vital public land. Addressing the housing crisis is important work. Yet, whilst the recently gazetted Crows Nest Todd amendments provide for an additional 5,900 new dwellings on the doorstep of this hospital precinct and delivered huge windfall increases in property values to a handful of private property owners, it failed to mandate more than 3% affordable housing provision for most of the sites within the precinct. That's one lost opportunity. The EOI itself merely calls for the provision of just 67 affordable housing units within an up to 62-storey tower. 15% affordable housing for healthcare workers on public land is visible. It is essential that valuable public land within a health precinct continue to be held by the government in order to provide vital public health services to the significantly increasing population within the Todd precinct now and next 10 years and beyond. This is especially important in the context that Royal North Shore is a major teaching hospital serving a rapidly expanding population, and it occupies the smallest land area of any of the major tertiary referral hospitals in New South Wales. Once sold, no future government will ever be able to afford to acquire land within this hospital precinct in this location in Sydney ever again. The state government must retain the land in public hands and deliver the housing for the healthcare workers on the site without flogging it off to private developers for a quick profit. And in fact, the state government should be able to deliver at least as much as the private sector are offering on the Crows Nest overstation development as at the very minimum. So I therefore recommend that council call on the state government not to sell off vital public land within an essential hospital precinct to developers. And 2, that council write to Willoughby City Council, Lane Cove Council and Nesrock, seeking that they join with us in lobbying the state government to retain public ownership of the Royal North Shore Hospital precinct land. Are there any speakers? Councillor Berkey.
Thank you, Mayor.
It does seem like deja vu all over and over and over again, and I really don't know what it is with state governments of either persuasion always just wanting to flog off public land. In a context where we have a housing crisis, and I agree with you, 67 affordable units within a tower is just disgraceful. We can't afford for this land to be sold off. This is a major teaching hospital. We know we don't have enough beds now, and we know we won't have enough beds for the thousands of residents that are going to be joining us. And it would be lovely if for once the state government actually provided some infrastructure in advance of the population arriving. We already know that our schools are full. We know that children within the catchment of Camaragal are now going to Hunters Hill or to Mossman. And we've been down this road before. And one of the pleasing parts I recall with the Mayor a few years ago was when there was a push to sell off the Anzac site, the rest of where Anzac Park School is. And it was very, 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 very tempting to take the cash. However, the council decided that no, you would never get that land back in this area. And so what is Anzac Park School is on a 99-year lease. So if the state government do want to go down this terrible path of flogging off land for a quick dollar, then perhaps they might look at a lease, so that they actually take into account intergenerational equity and not sell off land for our future generations that may well come back. And in the context of a teaching hospital with already not enough beds, we have workers at the hospital who can't afford to live within cooey of the hospital because the accommodation is so expensive. And in the context of the other hospital, Northern Beaches, the public-private partnership being quite frankly a disaster, and more development going up on the Northern Beaches as well, the last thing we should be doing is selling land.
Thank you. Then Councillor Hoy.
I support the amendment. Thank you for bringing it. The proposal to sell off public land on Royal North Shore Hospital was a bad plan in 2011, it was a bad plan in 2014, it was a bad plan in 2021, and it remains a bad plan today. Housing supply is of course important, but it shouldn't come at the expense of other vital public services and amenities, and it shouldn't be driven by the reckless disposal of vital public land. There are ample opportunities and incentives already for big developers to build new housing in our part of the world and make a handsome profit while they're at it. It's appallingly short-sighted and foolish for the government to proceed with the sale of this important piece of land to deliver a further windfall to private developers. It is even more insulting a proposition when you consider the miserly amount of affordable housing this proposal is intended to deliver. The Minns Labor government continues to pursue a failed private developer-led model of housing development, the same policy pursued under the disastrous Liberal National government before them. The only discernible difference between these two governments is the aggressiveness which it is being pursued by this new Labor government. Not since the bad old days of decades past has the playing field been tipped so heavily in favour of billionaire developers and their profits. We deserve so much better than this terrible plan. Where is the vision, or even where is the memory? Let's have the Public Works Agency, a public developer that built and maintained assets for and by the people. Why is what was so common just decades ago suddenly inconceivable today? It's a shocking failure of political leadership and a damning indictment on this government that they are so keen to once again get at bed with the big developers and sell out future generations. I echo the prescient words of the late John Kay, former Greens MLC and one-time spokesperson for health for our party, when he said in 2014, the people of New South Wales would pay the price for this short-sighted cash grab if the privatisation of this public health land were to proceed. He said selling or leasing a significant portion of this public hospital land as the state faces growing health challenges made no sense in 2011 and still doesn't in 2014. I would add to these remarks that much as they made no sense in 2011 and 2014, they make no sense in 2021 and they make no sense to this day. Support them.
Councillor Holding.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank you for raising this mayoral minute. I think it's very timely and it raises a very important question, which has already been really demonstrated by Councillor Berrigan and Councillor Hoy. I just wanted to add my voice to that, in that I do feel the number that really attracted my attention in your mayoral minute was the 67 affordable units in a 62-storey tower. If you think about a hospital and how it runs, and if you think about the numbers of units, whether it's cancer or emergency ICU, all the different services that are provided within that precinct, and if you think about 24-hour care, you can immediately see that 67 units really wouldn't cater to very many staff that are working on a 24-hour shift basis. And it's very clear that that's not enough. And while there are other options in the area, this is a prime opportunity to, as we've already said, keep this in public hands, keep it in public land, and just do a lot better. So I commend the Mayor for raising this, and I fully support the motion.
Any other speakers? Councillor Welsh.
We are currently facing a housing crisis, as the previous speakers have already said, and there's no doubt about that. But we must also recognize that we live in one of the most densely populated precincts in all of Australia. I firmly believe that we need to deliver more housing. However, I do not believe that housing should be built without the necessary supporting infrastructure. Our communities need more than just roofs over their heads. They need schools. They need access to green space and sporting fields and healthcare. If we want to create sustainable, livable communities, we must ensure the growth is planned, coordinated, and properly supported. We have a responsibility to get this balance right for the people who live here now and for the generations who will come after us. I support the recommendation.
Any other speakers?
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? And that's carried unanimously. That takes us to the rest of the agenda. So far, there are 3 items that have been called to speak to from Councillor Carr. Is there a procedural motion for matters by exception? Councillor Berrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to speak to the Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee minutes, so I won't move to bring that forward, but I'll move the other items in this order. If anybody would like to speak, please let me know. 9.2, the Traffic Committee minutes. 10.1, matters outstanding. 10.2, March 2025 month-end financial report. 10.5, draft fees and charges schedule 2025-26. 10.6, investment loan borrowings report as at the 31st of March 2025. 10.7, the service review framework. 10.8, advertising on council infrastructure contract. 10.9, the new lease on council property shop for 190 to 192 Military Road, Neutral Bay. 10.10, new licence on council property lower ground floor, Neutral Bay Community Centre, 190 to 192 Military Road, Neutral Bay. And 10.11, new lease on council property suite 5.01, 1 James Place, North Sydney.
Seconder for that motion, seconded by Councillor Santa. I'll put the procedural motion. All those in favour? Those against? And that's carried unanimously. For those who may be following this meeting, that means that Council has adopted the recommendations within each of the reports that are listed there. That then takes us to 9.1, Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee minutes. Is there a mover for the minutes? Moved by Councillor Berrigan, seconded by Councillor Carr. You wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, I obviously take the minutes as read. I just really wanted to point out the wonderful feedback that came back from AREC in a number of areas in the most recent meeting, went for quite a long time. And that really was around the service review framework and the street cleaning pilot service review. To say that the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee were impressed at the quality and standard of the report is an understatement. One of them said it's the best service review framework and service review pilot, report that they'd ever seen. And I would just like to acknowledge that on the floor of council and pass on my thanks to the authors of the report and to the director. It was very exciting to hear the feedback from the committee But one of the really exciting part was reading the pilot service review on street cleaning. And if there's anything that councils are well known for, it's street cleaning. And if you have a look at the report, you'll see the enthusiasm with which our staff, the council staff who work in that area, are about their roles, and also about what they think would make not just their roles better, but a more efficient and improved service. And that is a fantastic thing to come through. The feedback is wonderful, and they feel very committed to their jobs. They take enormous pride in our parks and our streets, and to have some of the suggestions that they came up with are really ones that, unless you have that lived experience and actually do the job, you wouldn't actually appreciate that. So I would just like to pass on, as part of this, the committee have already acknowledged it in their minutes, but the compliments of the committee be extended to the authors of the excellent reports, and if that could be taken back to the team. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? I'll put the item. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. That brings us to item 10.3, the draft delivery program and operational plan. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Beregi, seconded by Councillor Holding. Do you wish to speak to it?
I'll set my right reply. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In relation to this item, it's disappointing to see that the delivery program on the agenda is ahead of a decision of whether to endorse the following item, which is mainly the CSP. Given the IP&R framework puts the CSP at the top of the process and should drive the delivery plan, the resource plan, and the long-term financial plan. It is also disappointing to see that the delivery program, which formed a significant part of the proposed SRV, is only now proposed to go out for public consultation. This detailed plan showing how the planned SRV income would be spent would have at least clarified to the community of how the rates are proposed to be spent. The community has rejected the informing strategies, has rejected the asset management plan, and has rejected the SRV. I'm not sure what response is expected from the community at this stage, given that many of the projects identified in this plan are dependent on the outcome from IPART. I will be voting against this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other, thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Carr. I don't approve of the informing strategies, and therefore I can't support this. They are unnecessary at this point of time at this proposed financial crisis. It is the role of the General Manager to suggest options outside of a rate rise. Please remember, councillors, on the 10th of February, you were given no other options other than an enormous SRV to consider. This is all on the contingency of an SRV. This should be deferred until we know the outcome from IPART.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with both previous speakers. I think it's entirely shocking that we don't have a backup plan. It's just poor financial management. It's poor planning. It's equally poor planning to put forward both this and the community strategic plan that rely on an SRV that increasingly looks like unlikely to be improved in full or scaled back. We're just creating work here that could be better spent on providing alternatives and backups in case our budget needs to be adjusted. I've not seen such poor financial management in an organisation, and I'm quite shocked that we've put effort into putting up a plan that has a likely chance of not proceeding, and put no effort into a redundant plan that can be put in place in the event that it's not approved. So shocked and very discouraged by what we're putting forward.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Beregi, do you wish to exercise your right of reply? Before you do, I'm going to speak briefly to that. I'm still shocked that we have councillors here who either willfully are misinterpreting the plans that are before us, or just completely ignorant of how local government works. This is the way that local government operates across the state. We do put out, unlike state government, a draft delivery program that is a 4-year plan and an operational plan being the annual budget. We have put it on the basis of our financial repair plan, which has been considered very publicly, and contrary to Councillor Carr's assertions, our community has not rejected an asset management plan or rejected a community strategic plan or rejected the need for financial repair. The fact is that if you read the report, the plans, the programs that are going out on exhibition for community engagement assume the special rate variation, but they're very clear as to what the adjustment must be if that does not proceed. It's a $25 million in the first year, and certainly all of the capital works and programs that have been identified are very clearly identified with a stop sign, and we'll have to look beyond that. And it's a decision not of the council staff, it's a decision of this governing body as to how we proceed if the SRV is not approved. And in fact, the councillors have been exhorted publicly in reports and definitely at briefings to put forward their solutions for repair. And so far, you've been exceptionally silent, other than to say sell the Kirribilli Easy Mart. So I'm confident that we have an understanding and sophisticated group of residents who understand that we here are doing the terrible cleanup work of the legacy of absolute ad hocery and financial recklessness that we have inherited. And this is all part of it. So no doubt we'll have an interesting debate when this returns to us. And by then we hope that IPART will have made a decision. So for those reasons, I support the exhibition. Councillor Berrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. I endorse your comments, and I too wish that such pause was given when reckless decisions were being made in relation to the North Sydney pool when Councillor Keane was last on the council. It's very simple to look at the report and just back out everything with a traffic light. But what I really can't believe is that they're no longer draft strategies. These are adopted strategies of this council. So to say that the community is against them, I think is just, again, reckless. However, what you are voting against is actually giving the community a say, which I find quite astonishing. We're putting the draft programs out on public exhibition, and we can't delay it because we have a timeline to work to, which is set by the state government, and we must adopt a community strategic plan and a delivery program and an operational plan by the 30th of June. And that was very clearly made out, the timeline from the moment this council started. We went through the induction session, and it's been in every paper. So by all means, if you're happy to not allow the community to look at the community and to have their say, that's fine. That's not the way I operate, and I'll be supporting the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Berry's had a right of reply. I'll put the item. All those in favour and those against, and that is carried with Councillors Spenceley, Keane and Carr against. That brings, we'll ask Councillor Welch to return. And that brings us to item 10.4, the Community Strategic Plan. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Berrigan, and a seconder, Councillor Antonini. Do you wish to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Notwithstanding the huge amount of work by council staff to pull this together, I will be voting against the CSP because of the following reasons. 78% of residents did not agree with the implementing strategies that this plan is based on. The process of arriving at the CSP, the process for the SRV and the delivery plan seem to be out of order of the IPNR process. This plan appears to be pulled together after everything else in the IPNR process has been done. I do not endorsed the CSP, and the very small number of responses received, despite the wide dissemination of information, is probably an indication of the rejection of the informing strategies in the first place, rather than an indication of indifference by the community. I'm aware that Council has responded to 33 submissions who objected to this plan. Feedback from some of those who received responses said that Council's response was inadequate. At its last meeting on April 15th, 2025, the CPC submitted to Council the resolution to advise Council not to proceed with consideration of the proposed community strategic plan until the outcome of the IPART submission is known, and then to revisit the issue in consultation with the community. The comments from the CPC do not appear in Council's report. And if we think precincts are a valuable source of feedback for Council, I'm perplexed to understand why the contribution is not contained in the Council documents. I do not support the adoption of this plan. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Carr. I mentioned this on the 10th of March that once again we are considering the informing strategies, 146 million that has been allocated through the outrageous rate rise proposal that's gone to IPART. I can't support this when our residents are going to struggle with any proposed rate, well, with the proposed rate increase of 87%. The legislation states that Council must review the community strategic plan before the 30th of June, following the ordinary election of Council. But Council can endorse an existing plan. We already have a community strategic plan. Why are we not reviewing the existing document rather than considering these informing strategies?
Any other speakers? Do you wish to exercise your right of reply, Councillor Berge? Because if you do, I'm going to speak very briefly beforehand. Once again, we have what I can only call propaganda, the repeat of a lie over and over that we're all meant to believe. Because the reality is those informing strategies in the community consultation was deep, it was rigorous, it was once in a generation. It has not been done to that extent before in this council. That began in April of last year with enormous community engagement with thousands of people involved. And that resulted in what became those adopted 8 informing strategies. And the reason why our community broadly have committed to those and participated in the development of those informing strategies, which are the core of what is in this community strategic plan, is because our community had had enough of the exceptionally poor, uninformed previous community strategic plan that had not had that level of community engagement to underpin it. It was sick of the ad hocery of the decision making and the unresourced approach. This council has adopted a strategic, careful approach, which is looking over the next 10 years, that is about equity to the next generation and about effective delivery on the priorities that our community set. And that is why I support this community strategic plan. The do nothing approach is a real head in the sand approach that the Liberal councillors are advocating here. This is about doing nothing and ending up in administration or bankruptcy. So the fact is that we have a community strategic plan that sets the priorities. This isn't about individual projects that may have been part of some of those informing strategies. The resourcing of those projects will be via the delivery plan and the operational plan. But what it is saying to us as a guiding document is this is what our community expect, and these are the priorities that they expect us to deliver on. And for those reasons, I support the adoption. And I'm proud that finally this council is going to shake off the shackles of the reckless and ad hoc decision making of the previous 10 plus years. So thank you. Do you have your right of reply, Councillor Berge?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll leave it.
Councillor Spenceley now wishes to speak. Councillor Spenceley.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't comment on the processes around the previous community strategic plans. I wasn't on council. I take what you say. But the reality is these informing strategies have been done with great deal of community consultation. There's no question, but they've been done without the context of cost or impact. That is an incredibly important part. You know, we have to weigh up whether the consultation around the community in informing strategies or the feedback around the rate rise that or the SRV that's those strategies cause is more important. So what we're saying here is we've got informing strategies that were put with no context to the participants and to the community. There was no concept of, if you would like these strategies, your rates will go up X.
I have to call you to order because that was very much part of the community consultation. So you're incorrect there. But continue.
Mayor, there has not been context around a rate rise and an order of magnitude around each of the informing strategies, which is what good consultation does. Now, then we have fast forward to the consultation and the feedback we receive around the special rate variation and the informing strategies, with over 900 submissions, individual submissions to the SRV, with a great proportion of them objecting to the informing strategies because of the resulting SRV. The feedback is clear. The community does not want to spend money and to increase rates, and that's why I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers before I call on Councillor Beregi to give her right of reply? Councillor Holden.
Just thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, all I'm hearing really from other councillors that are not supporting it is criticisms but no alternatives. Just follow the old community strategic plan, just coast along. We don't have the option to do that. We have to publicly consult before adopting something in June. And our role here is to be leaders and to look at the information and to make a leadership decision. And that is what we're doing. And, you know, just coasting and doing nothing is not an option for us. Regarding the combined precinct committees, obviously the combined precinct committees and precincts are very worthwhile, and any comments they have to make can always be emailed to us directly. I receive nothing personally in my councillor email, but I'd be welcome to read their thoughts and comments. So I will be supporting the motion.
Councillor Beregi, your right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. A bit like you, I'm a bit astonished at what I'm hearing, especially given the previous 10 years that both you and I have lived through, which was chaos, which was ad hoc decision-making, which was endless spending. And we only have to go back and read the independent report into the North Sydney Olympic Pool to know exactly, which was really the metaphor for the 10 years that council was around and you and I were in minority government. The idea that the community don't know that these come at a cost is quite insulting, quite frankly. I think the community are well aware of the situation the council is in. I think the community are well aware of why the council is in this situation. And it's really astonishing that one of the people who actually put the council in this position is now advocating to either do nothing or sell up. So again, I really just think that it's a bit like Councillor Holding says, we're here to lead. We're here to show the future for North Sydney. We're here to be the big people in the room, to make the hard decisions and to take the community with us. And that's what we will do. The SRV is unknown at the moment. However, I'm sure the CEO has plans in place should either the SRV not go through or be partial or whatever the decision is. But we move forward and we will make the decisions then. But this is about being upfront with the community, endorsing what that came back to us, and moving forward in a positive way with proper due process.
Putting the item, all those in favour and those against, Councillor Carr, Keane and Spencerley, the motion is carried. That brings us to the last item on the agenda, the North Sydney Olympic Pool project update. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Santa, seconded by Councillor Beregi. Councillor Carr, you wish to speak to it. Do what you wish. Are you able to speak to it within in the public forum, or will we be required to close the meeting so that you can speak to the legal, professional, privilege, and commercial in confidence?
I would like to move to close the meeting.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by councillor Holding. I put the procedural motion to close the meeting for discussion. All those in favour? And that is carried. So now we will close the meeting.
Be careful that we've actually got that closed off from the thing.
During the, we'll reopen the council meeting following the closure to consider item 10.12, the North Sydney Olympic Pool redevelopment project update. During that closure, council considered the item and resolved that council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to extend the agreement with the APP Group Proprietary Limited for project management resources to 30 August 2025 at a cost of $249,000 for the North Sydney Olympic Pool redevelopment using the extenuating circumstances provisions within section 55.3.1 of the Local Government Act 1993, noting that the additional costs can currently be accommodated within the existing budget at this stage. 3, that council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to extend the agreement with the Brewster Hewlett Architects Proprietary Limited to 30 August 2025 at a cost of $660,000 for the North Sydney Olympic Pool redevelopment using the extenuating circumstances provisions within section 55.3.1 of the Local Government Act 1993, noting that the additional costs can currently be accommodated within the existing budget at this stage. 4, that council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to extend the agreement with the CPM Proprietary Limited to 30 August 2025 at a cost of $115,000 for the North Sydney Olympic Pool redevelopment using the extenuating circumstance provisions within section 55.3.1 of the Local Government Act 1993, noting that the additional costs can currently be accommodated within the existing budget at this stage. 5, that council authorise Chief Executive Officer to extend the agreement with Spark Helmore to 30 August 2025 at a cost of $90,000 for the North Sydney Olympic Pool redevelopment using the extenuating circumstances provisions within section 55.3.1 of the Local Government Act 1993, noting that the additional costs can currently be accommodated within the existing budget at this stage. 6, that council notes that works insurance for the redevelopment of the North Sydney Olympic Pool will now need to be extended due to ongoing delays. 7, that council notes the financial impacts and risks associated with the ongoing delays associated with the redevelopment of the North Sydney Olympic Pool. And 8, that the confidential report and related attachments be treated as confidential and remain confidential unless council determines otherwise. And 9, that council notes the contents of this report in relation to the redevelopment of the North Sydney Olympic Pool. That brings the meeting to a close. Thank you everyone for your participation this evening. And the next, we look forward to the next formal meeting of council.